The galaxy had seen many wars, but none frightened it more than the rising conflict between the Valar Dominion and the Terran Alliance. For 50 years, both sides had stared across the stars like wolves circling each other. Every colony built by one was watched by the other. Every movement of ships, every radio signal, carried the smell of a coming war. To stop that, someone had to make a sacrifice, and that sacrifice came in the form of a marriage. Princess Calthira Vena, daughter of the High Regent of Valar, stood inside the Silver Hall of Arthen Prime, a neutral world chosen for peace talks. Her long crystalline gown shimmered like frost. Her eyes were cold, sharp as the frozen seas of her home planet. Around her stood hundreds of alien dignitaries, tall, thin, scaled, and glowing faintly with inner light. Across the hall stood Captain Elias Ward, the chosen representative of humanity. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran Alliance Navy. His face carried a calm that Calthira could not read. Humans looked so plain, soft skin, dull colors, no glow. To Valerians, they looked like creatures of dust and stone. Yet something about him unsettled her. Not fear, something else. Warmth, maybe. The room buzzed with whispers as the officiator began the ceremony. This union, the alien voice echoed through the chamber, shall bind two civilizations, once at the edge of destruction into the path of peace. Princess Calthira of Valar, Captain Elias Ward of Earth, do you accept this bond? Calthira hesitated for a moment. The eyes of her people, cold and proud, watched her every move. Her father stood behind her, expression unreadable. She forced her voice steady. I accept for the peace of my people. Then Elias spoke, his tone low but firm. I accept. For peace and for hope that our species may build something better. Their hands met. Her fingers cool and luminous. His warm and solid. A faint glow spread where skin touched. Her bioluminescence reacting strangely to his body heat. For a second, the light pulsed as if alive. Gasps filled the hall. Calthira quickly pulled her hand away, unsure why her heart was beating so fast. It's nothing, she told herself. A reaction, nothing more. The ceremony ended with formal words and false smiles. The galaxy's two greatest powers were now united, but everyone knew it was just a fragile thread keeping war at bay. Later that night, Calthira sat on the balcony of the diplomatic quarters, staring out at the city lights of Arthen Prime. The planet's sky glowed purple, with slow-moving ships drifting above. She sipped a glowing drink made of liquid crystal, Valar tradition for new unions. She had met her husband only 2 days ago. He was polite but distant. Every answer he gave was short, controlled, almost rehearsed. But there was something steady in his eyes, a quiet strength that Valerians didn't have. Her kind were guided by logic and hierarchy. Humans, from what she'd studied, were guided by passion, dangerous, unpredictable emotion. That was why her people feared them. She heard the soft sound of a door opening. Elias stepped out onto the balcony. He wore a simple shirt, no armor, no weapons. The cool night breeze ruffled his hair. Your Highness, he said with a small nod. Do you wish me to leave you alone? Calthira turned slightly. No, you may stay, Captain. It is your balcony too now. A silence passed between them. Below, traffic lights blinked like fireflies. Above, stars burned quietly. You don't have to call me Captain, he said after a moment. Just Elias is fine. Elias, she repeated slowly, testing the word. It felt strange on her tongue, soft human. You humans use first names so freely. Among my people, it takes years to earn that level of closeness. He smiled faintly. Among humans, we start with it. Makes it easier to get to know each other. Calthira tilted her head. Know each other? We are bound by treaty, not friendship. Maybe, he said softly. But treaties don't last without trust. She turned her gaze back to the stars. Trust is built on history, Captain, and our history is full of blood. He didn't argue. Instead, he leaned on the balcony rail, eyes on the horizon. Then maybe it's time we write a better one. His voice was calm, but there was a kind of fire behind his words. Quiet, yet unbreakable. Calthira felt that warmth again, the same one she had felt when they touched. She didn't understand it, and that bothered her. Valerians were cold-blooded. They measured emotion like science. Humans, however, felt. Their emotions were energy, raw, unpredictable. She'd seen videos of them crying, laughing, fighting, sacrificing. It made no sense. Yet now, standing near one, she could almost feel it radiating from him like invisible heat. "What do you believe in, Elias Ward?" she asked suddenly. He looked surprised by the question, then thought carefully. "I believe in trying again. Even after failure. Even after pain. That's what being human means to me." Kalthira frowned. "Trying again? Even after you lose?" He nodded. "Especially after we lose." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Valerians didn't understand persistence. If something failed, it was abandoned. But humans, they stood up again and again, no matter how much it hurt. To Kalthira, that was foolishness. And yet, she couldn't look away from him. The next day, the couple was paraded through the Grand Hall of Unity, their faces displayed on 1,000 screens. The galaxy celebrated peace, but behind the smiles, tension remained. Some Valerian nobles sneered at Elias as he passed, calling him a soft-skinned mammal under their breath. Elias ignored them. His expression never changed. Kalthira noticed that silence, not prideful but controlled. He didn't respond to insults. He didn't show weakness either. He simply kept walking. Later, during the banquet, she saw him talking with the alien envoys. Respectful, curious, even kind. He laughed at their jokes, shared stories of Earth's oceans, forests, and storms. When he described Earth's sunrise, the light turning clouds gold, his eyes shone. Kalthira found herself listening more closely than she meant to. When the banquet ended, one of her cousins approached her privately. "Cousin," the woman hissed, "how can you stand being near that creature?" "They are animals. Their world burns with war," Kalthira answered quietly. "Perhaps that is why they value peace more than we do." The cousin sneered and walked away, but Kalthira's words stayed in her own mind long after. A few days later, an incident changed everything. During a routine diplomatic meeting, a hidden drone exploded near the Valar delegation's chamber. The blast sent fire and smoke through the hallway. Guards shouted. Kalthira was thrown off her feet, dazed. Before she could rise, Elias was there, covering her with his body, shielding her from the falling debris. Heat scorched his back, but he didn't move until the danger passed. When the smoke cleared, she saw his uniform torn, blood on his shoulder. Her heart pounded. "You fool!" she shouted, grabbing his arm. "Why would you do that?" He winced, half smiling. "Instinct, I guess. You could have died." He met her glowing eyes. "So could you." Kalthira froze. For a moment, she couldn't find words. No one in her world would have done such a thing. Valerians valued logic, survival, hierarchy, yet this human and her husband had risked his life without hesitation. For her, when the medics arrived, he refused painkillers until Kalthira was treated first. That small act, more than anything, broke through her walls. Later, she visited him in the medical bay. The human doctors were amazed at how fast he was recovering. "He's lucky," one said. "Another inch and that fragment would have pierced his lung." Kalthira sat beside him, her glowing hands folded tightly. "You risked everything." "For me?" Elias shrugged. "You're my wife. Peace depends on you. I couldn't let anything happen." "It was not logic that made you act," she said softly. "It was emotion." "Maybe both," he said. "But I don't think logic alone ever saved anyone." She looked at him for a long time. For the first time, she noticed how steady his heartbeat sounded through the monitor. Firm, rhythmic, unyielding. Like a drum calling to something inside her she didn't know existed. She reached out, touching his hand carefully. His warmth spread through her again. Her glow brightened slightly. Soft blue this time, not cold white. He noticed and smiled faintly. "Does that mean something?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "It means I am no longer cold." He blinked, not fully understanding, but he didn't need to. They sat in silence, human and alien, two beings from opposite world, yet somehow connected by something deeper than treaties. Outside the medical bay, the stars shone above HFY. The galaxy was still filled with danger and distrust, but something had changed tonight. For the first time, Kalthira began to wonder if humans were not dangerous because of their weapons, but because of their hearts, because they burned brighter than anyone else. The explosion on HFY had changed everything. After the attack, the peace treaty survived, but only barely. Some Valar nobles whispered that humans had faked the incident to gain sympathy. Others accused the Dominion's own war faction of trying to destroy the marriage alliance. But in the middle of all the politics, Calthera found herself thinking about one thing: the moment Elias Ward had thrown himself in front of her. That image wouldn't leave her mind. The flash, the fire, his body shielding hers, and then his eyes calm even while bleeding. For Valerian, sacrifice was rare. Emotion was weakness. Yet this human had acted without hesitation, not for logic, not for strategy, but for something pure. She didn't understand it, and that frightened her. Elias's recovery took only a few weeks. The medical team had been amazed at how fast his body healed. Humans, one Valar medic whispered, shaking his head. They are like iron wrapped in flesh. Calthera visited him every day. At first, she told herself it was only her duty as his political partner. But slowly she began to look forward to those visits. He would greet her with a small smile, even when covered in medical patches. He never complained about pain. Instead, he would ask her questions about Valar culture, their art, their long lifespans, and the strange glow that pulsed beneath their skin. She answered carefully, always formal. Yet every time she tried to keep her distance, his sincerity made her drop her guard a little more. One evening, when the medical bay was quiet, Elias sat up in bed and said, "I read something about your people's light. You call it the soul current, right?" Calthera nodded. "Yes, it flows through us from birth. It is our life energy. When we are calm, it glows white. When we feel emotion, the color changes." Elias grinned. "So when yours turned blue that night after the attack, what did that mean?" Her glow flickered slightly, as if embarrassed. "Blue means confusion. Conflict between thought and feeling," he laughed softly. "I cause that a lot, huh?" Calthera tried not to smile. "Humans cause many things, Elias Ward." He looked at her seriously then. "Call me Elias, please. When you say it, it sounds like I'm human again, not just an officer or a symbol." For a moment she hesitated. Then she said softly, "Elias." Something inside her chest warmed when she said it. Days turned into weeks. The political councils continued, with both species trying to build fragile trust. Calthera attended meetings beside Elias. She noticed how he listened, really listened, to every alien voice, even the ones that insulted him. When Valar nobles mocked Earth's lack of ancient culture, Elias didn't defend with anger. He simply said, "Our history is short, yes, but our dreams are long." When they warned that humans were too emotional, he answered, "Maybe emotions are what make us reach for the stars." Calthera watched him speak, and for the first time in her long life she felt pride. Not for her empire, but for him. He didn't use power. He didn't use fear. He used warmth, and warmth, she realized, could melt even ice. One afternoon, Calthera invited him to visit the Valar Embassy Gardens, a large, domed area filled with glowing crystal trees and silver-leafed vines. It was quiet, peaceful, and private. "This place," she explained, walking beside him, "was built before the Dominion united our world. The light of these trees has been burning for 10,000 years." Elias whistled softly. 10,000 years. Humanity was still learning how to make fire back then. Calthera smiled faintly. "And now you hold fire inside ships that fly between stars." He looked up at the glowing branches. "Yeah, I guess we do." They walked for a while without speaking. Finally, Elias said, "I've never seen something like this. On Earth we have forests, yes, but not like this. Ours are wild, green, and full of life. You'd like them, I think." Calthera stopped walking. "Maybe one day I will see them." "Maybe one day," he said with a smile. "And I'll show you the oceans, too. Waves taller than houses. Salt in the wind. It feels alive." She watched the light in his eyes as he spoke. He wasn't just describing water and land, he was describing home. And his voice carried a kind of quiet love that even her alien heart could understand. "Your people," she said, "seem to feel deeply for everything." He nodded. "We have to. Our world tried to kill us for thousands of years. Storms, diseases, our own mistakes. Feeling kept us human. Hope kept us going." Calthera looked down. "Hope is a dangerous thing, maybe," Elias said softly. "But it's the only thing that builds tomorrow." That night she couldn't sleep. She walked to the balcony again, the same one where they had first spoken after the wedding. The stars looked different now, closer somehow. War still loomed beyond them, but for the first time she wondered if it could truly be stopped. When she heard the door open behind her, she didn't turn. She already knew it was him. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "No," she said quietly. "My mind is..." Noisy. Elias leaned against the railing beside her. Yeah, peace talks will do that to you. I am not thinking of politics, she said softly. I am thinking of people. Of you. He looked at her, surprised. Me? She nodded slowly. You confuse me, Elias Ward. My people think emotion is weakness. But you use it like strength. You risked your life without hesitation. You forgive easily. You laugh even when others insult you. Why? He thought for a long moment. Because if I let hate decide who I am, I'll become the thing I'm fighting. Kelthira turned toward him, her blue glow softening to silver. That is illogical, he smiled. Yeah, but sometimes illogical saves lives. They stood there for a long time, silent under the stars. Then quietly she asked, Do all humans feel like you do? He shook his head. No, but most of us try. We break, we bleed, we fall, but we keep trying. That's the only reason our species is still here. Her glow brightened slightly again, mixing with the golden light from the city below. You humans burn so brightly. I don't know how you survive it. Elias looked at her, his voice low. Maybe because we don't survive it forever. We just make sure the light keeps going. Something inside her chest ached at those words. She didn't know what to call it, but it felt like her frozen heart was beginning to thaw. The next day, a new crisis erupted. An encrypted message arrived at the Valar embassy. It was from Kelthira's homeworld, her father's advisors. They warned that extremist groups on both sides were planning attacks. Many Valar generals still believed the marriage was a mistake. They wanted war. Kelthira's hands trembled as she read the message. Her glow flickered between blue and red, fear and anger. Elias entered the room and saw her expression. What happened? She handed him the data tablet. They are planning something. A strike against your colonies. If it happens, the Alliance will retaliate. It will all end. Elias read in silence, jaw tight. So much for peace. She looked up at him. Can we stop it? He thought for a moment, then nodded. Maybe, but we'll need proof first and allies. Kelthira hesitated. If we act against my own people, I will be branded a traitor. He met her eyes. And if we don't, billions will die. There was no hesitation in his voice, no fear. Just determination. And once again she saw that strange fire inside him. The same one that had driven him to protect her without thinking. For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered, You would risk everything again, wouldn't you? He nodded. If that's what it takes. Her glow shifted to bright gold, a color rare for Valarians. It meant admiration, respect, and something else she wasn't ready to name. That night, Kelthira stood before her mirror, staring at her reflection. The golden light inside her chest pulsed gently. She placed her hand over her heart and whispered, Humans, why do you shine so brightly? In the reflection, she saw Elias entering the room behind her. Talking to yourself? He asked softly. She smiled a little. Maybe, or maybe I was talking to the stars. Funny, he said, walking closer. That's how humans pray. She turned toward him.
Do you pray often?
He looked down for a moment. When I'm scared. When I need strength. Or when I remember the ones we lost. Kelthira frowned. Who did you lose? Elias took a slow breath. My sister. During the Mars conflict. She was a medic. She saved others until her last breath. Kelthira's light dimmed to a deep blue. I'm sorry, he smiled gently. Don't be. She believed in peace too. I think she'd like you. Those simple words struck her harder than she expected. She wanted to speak but couldn't. Her heart felt too full. Elias placed his hand lightly on hers. Whatever happens next, Kale, we'll face it together. Her glow brightened again, warm gold and soft silver blending. She looked up at him, whispering, Together. Outside, the stars of Arthan Prime shimmered across the sky, reflecting in her glowing eyes. Somewhere out there, war was still coming, but for now, a human and an alien stood side by side, united not by treaties or orders, but by something far stronger, something that burned quietly between them. A human fire. A soul that refused to dim. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Across the stars, fleets began to move again, slow, quiet, dangerous. The fragile peace between the Valar Dominion and the Terran Alliance was breaking apart like glass. Whispers of war spread through every council chamber. On news screens, angry speeches filled the air. Humans blamed the Valar extremists for new attacks, Valar leaders accused humans of spying. Each word made the wound deeper, and in the middle of it all stood Princess Cael'thera and Captain Elias Ward, the two people who had tried to stop the storm before it began. Cael'thera paced inside her chamber aboard the Valar embassy ship, her light flickering blue with frustration. "They will not listen," she said. "Every council meeting is just blame, blame, blame." Elias sat at the table studying a glowing tablet full of reports. "That's what fear does. It makes people forget reason." She looked at him sharply. "And what will reason do when warships start firing?" "You can't reason with plasma cannons," he didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the screen, calm but hard. That calmness both comforted and frightened her. He was human, yet he carried silence like a weapon. Finally, he looked up. "Kyle, there's something worse. Our intelligence found that the Valar war faction has built something called Project Sunpiercer." Her glow froze mid-pulse. "What is it?" "A weapon," he said quietly. "A massive one. From what we can tell, it's meant to destroy entire planets." Cael'thera felt her stomach twist. That cannot be true. No one would dare. But Elias showed her the data, blueprints, power signatures, fleet movements. There was no doubt. The Valar Dominion was preparing a weapon that could kill a world. He said softly, "And its first target is Earth." For a long time, Cael'thera couldn't breathe. Her light dimmed to almost nothing. "No," she whispered. "My father, he would never." Elias didn't speak. He didn't need to. The truth lay heavy between them. Finally, Cael'thera looked up, her voice shaking. "If this is true, Elias, then I have failed everything. My marriage, the peace treaty, the hope, everything." He reached across the table and took her hand. His warmth was steady. "No, you haven't failed. We still have time to stop it." She stared at their joined hands. "You still believe that?" "I have to," he said simply. "It's what humans do. When everything falls apart, we still keep moving." Her glow brightened faintly. "Even when there's no chance?" "Especially then," Elias said, a small, tired smile forming. "Because if we stop trying, the darkness wins." 2 days later, the peace treaty was officially suspended. The Valar fleet withdrew from human space. The Terran Alliance recalled its ambassadors. Cael'thera was ordered by her father to return home, to stand with her people. But as she prepared to leave, she received another message, this one not from the High Regent, but from a shadowed figure in the military. "Do not interfere, Princess. The Sunpiercer will bring final order to the galaxy. Humanity will kneel or burn." Cael'thera stared at the message until her hands trembled. That was the moment she made her choice. She didn't go home. Instead, she went to Elias. When she entered his quarters, he was already packing. "Command wants me back on Earth," he said. "They're preparing for evacuation drills, defense lines, everything." Cael'thera took a deep breath. "Then take me with you." He looked up sharply. "Kyle, I can't stand by while my people destroy another world," she said. "I know the coordinates of the Sunpiercer construction site. It's in the Arath Belt. I can get us inside." Elias studied her face. "If you do this, they'll call you a traitor." Her glow burned bright silver, the color of resolve. "Then I will be one. But I will not be a murderer." He smiled faintly, that same steady warmth she had grown to trust. "All right, Princess. Then let's stop a superweapon." They left the embassy ship in secret aboard a small human scout vessel. The stars outside were cold and endless. Inside, the air was thick with unspoken fear. But Elias moved through the cockpit like a soldier who had faced the void before. Every control, every light, his hands seemed sure. Cael'thera watched him, fascinated. Humans were fragile compared to Valerians, but they carried a kind of strength that came from inside, not outside. "You're not afraid," she said quietly. Elias glanced at her. "Of dying?" "Sure. But fear's useless if it stops you from doing what's right." She turned her gaze to the window. "Valar children are taught that fear is weakness." "Then you were taught wrong," Elias said. "Fear is what tells us we have something to lose. It means we care." His words echoed in her heart like thunder. For a moment she wished all her people could hear them. When they reached the Arath Belt, they saw it. A massive dark structure built between shattered asteroids. The Sunpiercer. It glowed faintly red like a sleeping beast. Dozens of Valar warships surrounded it, guarding their secret creation. Cael'thera's light dimmed. "It's worse than I imagined." Elias scanned the readings. The core's unstable. If we can overload it, we can destroy it before it ever fires. She turned toward him. Overload it. That could destroy this entire sector. He nodded. Yeah, that's why we'll need to be quick. For a moment she saw the quiet courage in his eyes. The same look he had when he shielded her from the blast weeks ago. That same fire. That same human light, she whispered. You really would burn yourself to save others. He looked at her softly. And you wouldn't? Her glow flickered, unsure. Maybe I would now. They infiltrated the facility disguised as engineers. Calthera used her diplomatic codes to bypass several security gates. Every step deeper into the Sunpiercer felt like walking into the mouth of death. The inner core chamber was a vast sphere filled with glowing energy conduits. The weapon's heart pulsed red, ready to awaken. Elias knelt by a control panel. If I set this to feedback, the reactor will eat itself in 10 minutes. Calthera stared at him. 10 minutes? We won't survive that. He gave a small smile. We'll find a way. But before they could finish, alarms began to blare. Velar guards poured into the chamber. Calthera's blood ran cold. They know! Go! Elias shouted, grabbing her hand. They ran through the maze of glowing corridors as blaster fire filled the air. The ship shook as containment fields began to overload. At a junction, a blast door began to close. Calthera made it through, but Elias stumbled, hit by a small explosion behind him. Elias! She screamed, trying to pull him through, but the door sealed halfway. Through the narrow gap, she saw his face, bruised and bleeding, but still calm. Finish it, Cal. You can still reach the core. No, she cried. Not without you. He smiled faintly, eyes steady. You once said humans burn too brightly. Maybe it's time to prove you right. Then the door slammed shut. Inside the sealed chamber, alarms screamed. Elias dragged himself to the main control console, his hands shaking. The reactor's light grew brighter, angry red turning to white. He pressed the final sequence. For peace, he whispered. The energy core began to collapse inward, light twisting, building. Outside, Calthera fought through guards, her tears glowing blue down her face. Elias! She shouted. Answer me. Through the comms, his voice came, weak but clear. Cal, don't cry, all right? If this works, maybe the galaxy will have a second chance. Her glow turned gold and blue at once, and love and grief impossible to hide. Please don't leave me, he chuckled softly. You said humans confuse you. Guess we still do. Elias. Cal, he said, voice growing faint. Promise me something. Don't let the fire die. Make them see it. Then the signal cut. The core exploded. Light swallowed everything, but it wasn't just an explosion, or it was beauty. Through the Valar fleet's scanners, the energy registered not as destruction, but as a brilliant surge of pure radiation unlike any they had seen before. A new star appeared in the Arath belt, small but impossibly bright. Its light traveled faster than expected, seen even from distant colonies within hours. Scientists couldn't explain it. Calthera's escape pod drifted far from the explosion site. When she opened her eyes, all she saw was that new light burning across the black sky. Her body trembled. Her soul glowed gold. He did it, she whispered. He saved them. Her heart ached, but she smiled through the tears. You burned brighter than any sun, Elias Ward. The war ended before it began. Valar fleets, shamed and shaken by what happened, stood down. The High Regent, Calthera's father, called for immediate ceasefire, declaring the Sunpiercer a forbidden weapon. Humans, too, stopped their retaliation fleets. The light that replaced the weapon had become a message stronger than words. The new star still burned in the sky. It was brighter than anything in that sector, a perfect white fire that shimmered like a living soul. The people of both the Valar Dominion and the Terran Alliance called it by the same name now. They called it Ward's Star, and every time someone looked at it, they remembered the human who gave his life to save both worlds. Princess Calthera stood before the Grand Council chamber of the Valar Dominion, her form glowing softly under the high crystal lights. The air was thick with silence, 1,000 Valar nobles watching her, some with suspicion, some with anger, and a few with respect. At the center sat her father, the High Regent Valkor, old and weary, his glow dim from guilt and sorrow. Calthera raised her head. Her voice was clear. I have come not as a princess, but as a witness. Her father's eyes flickered. A witness to what? To humanity, she said simply, and to what one man gave when we all turned to hate. The chamber stirred. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Calthera continued, each word steady. You ordered the Sun-Piercer built to ensure peace through fear. But it was a human who showed us that peace comes from courage, not domination. Enough, one of the generals snapped. That human destroyed our weapon. He made us weak. Her glow flared silver. He made us stronger than ever before. Because he reminded us of what we had forgotten, that honor is not found in conquest but in sacrifice. The room went silent again. Her father's voice was tired. Kyle, you risk much by saying these things. She took a step forward. I risk nothing compared to what Elias Ward gave. He died for both our peoples, and I will not let his light fade into a memory of shame. Outside the chamber, chaos filled the city. Velar protesters shouted for war. Others called for peace. Humans across the stars broadcasted the image of the new star, speaking of Elias Ward as a hero. Some called him the man who lit the sky. But to Calthera, he was something more. The man who had shown her what it truly meant to have a soul that blazed like a star. She stood on the balcony of the royal tower, staring up at the bright point of light. Her glow pulsed faintly gold. Elias, she whispered, your fire still burns. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke. Your words today were dangerous. She turned to see Admiral Therlan, an old friend of her father, his face lined with worry. They were true, Calthera replied. Truth does not always bring safety, he said grimly. There are those who still believe we should avenge the loss of the Sun-Piercer. They think peace is weakness. She looked back at the star. Then they have already lost, Therlan sighed. You sound like him, Calthera smiled sadly. Then maybe I'm learning. Days passed, and the galaxy began to change. The explosion that had destroyed the Sun-Piercer had also released strange energy into space, energy that seemed to heal. Radiation fields and repair damaged systems across nearby planets. Velar scientists were shocked. It's as if the explosion rewrote the space around it, they said. As if it wanted to give life, not take it. To humans it became a symbol, proof that something greater had happened there. Churches, schools, even space stations began to display the sign of Ward's star. It was no longer just light, it was hope. Calthera watched this transformation from her quarters. She was proud, but she was also haunted. She could not forget his voice in those last moments. Don't let the fire die. She thought about what he meant. Maybe he didn't just want her to tell his story. Maybe he wanted her to continue what he started. And so she made a choice. She left the royal palace one night without guards or ceremony and boarded a small diplomatic vessel. Her father tried to stop her, but she looked him in the eyes and said, Father, I can't live in a throne while others burn. I must finish what he began. Her ship flew toward Earth, toward the world that had once been her husband's home. When she arrived, the Terran Council was already in session, arguing about border patrols and defense grids. The counselors were tired, suspicious, and angry. Calthera walked into that hall glowing silver blue, her presence stopping every voice. A human guard whispered, It's her. The Velar princess, one of the counselors, frowned. Princess Calthera, why have you come here? The treaty is dead. She met his gaze calmly. Then I will make a new one. Laughter rippled through the room. Do you think you can fix centuries of mistrust with a few words? Another counselor said. Calthera's voice was quiet but steady. No, but one man already did more than that with his life. The room fell silent. Even the sound of machines stopped. She stepped forward, placing a small glowing crystal on the table. This contains the last data from the Sun-Piercer. Before its destruction, Elias Ward transferred a message, one that wasn't in your records. The counselors leaned forward, shocked. A message? She nodded. His final words. She activated the crystal. A soft holographic image filled the air. Elias Ward, battered, smiling faintly, his voice calm and warm. To whoever finds this, he said, don't waste time hating. Don't waste what's left trying to prove who's stronger. Use what you have to build something that lasts longer than war. Something worth dying for. The image faded. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then an older human counselor, eyes wet, said softly, He wasn't just talking to us. He was talking to everyone. Calthera nodded. Yes, and I will make sure everyone hears him. Over the next months, she worked tirelessly. She traveled between worlds and human colonies, Valar outposts, neutral stations, spreading the message of Elias Ward. She spoke not as a princess, but as a witness to a light that no one could kill. Her speeches became legend. In one, she said, "Humans and Valar are different, yes, but difference is not danger. It is balance. He showed me that our hearts may glow in different colors, but they burn with the same fire." Slowly, the hatred began to fade. Valar commanders opened trade routes again. Human fleets stopped their patrols near the border. And across the stars, people began to say a new word, Wardian peace. But peace was never easy. In the shadows of both empires, there were still those who despised the idea of unity. An extremist Valar faction called the Iron Glow began attacking convoys, blaming Cael'thera for betraying her own kind. At the same time, a human militant group, the Purity Front, attacked Valar ships near the border. Each side accused the other of being the aggressor. The fragile trust began to crack again. Cael'thera felt the weight of it all pressing on her. One night, as she watched Ward's star from the observation deck, her hands trembled. "Maybe I was wrong," she whispered. "Maybe peace can't last." A voice behind her said, "You sound just like me once." She turned sharply, then froze. It wasn't Elias. It was Admiral Juno Marek, Elias's old commander. His uniform was old, his eyes tired, but he smiled faintly. "He told me about you," Juno said. "Before his last mission." Cael'thera's glow flickered. "He did?" Juno nodded. "He said, she'll finish what I start. She'll build something better than me." I thought he was talking about politics. But maybe, he meant hope. Her chest tightened. "I'm failing him." Juno shook his head. "No, you're doing exactly what he did, fighting when it seems impossible." He looked out at the star. "And maybe that's what makes us human." She smiled sadly. "Then maybe I'm becoming a little human too." Not long after, Cael'thera made a final move. She gathered both human and Valar representatives in the same place, under the light of Ward's star itself. The station they built there was named the Beacon. Standing before both sides, Cael'thera spoke her final words to the divided galaxy. Elias Ward gave his life not to destroy an enemy, but to prove that light can exist even in the darkest places. We can build that light together, or we can die apart. The choice is ours. For a long time, no one moved. Then slowly, one by one, leaders from both species extended their hands. The first true act of unity since the war began. The beacon shone brighter than any ship in orbit, and far above the white star flared once more as if answering their vow. That night, Cael'thera stood alone on the observation deck of the beacon. Her eyes glimmered as she whispered, "We did it, Elias." They listened. The light of Ward's star reflected in her tears. But she smiled, not in sadness but in peace. Across the galaxies, children of both races grew up under its glow. They didn't see it as human or Valar, they just called it the Star of Peace. Centuries had passed since Elias Ward gave his life to save the galaxy. The white star in the Aeroth belt still burned, far brighter than any ordinary star, yet perfectly stable. Scientists had long confirmed it wasn't a normal celestial body. Its energy signature was unique, unlike anything ever observed. It had become a beacon, a guide, a symbol. It reminded every species, human, Valar, and others, of courage, sacrifice, and hope. And it all began with one man who refused to fade quietly. Princess Cael'thera's memory had grown into legend. Though she lived for centuries longer than any human could, she never forgot Elias Ward. She continued to serve as a unifier between Valar and human civilizations, but now as the matriarch of peace, she also carried a quiet, personal fire inside her, the memory of a human soul blazing brighter than any empire could contain. On the 500th anniversary of the Sunpiercer's destruction, she stood on the observation deck of the beacon, now expanded into a grand station for interstellar diplomacy. The council assembled beneath her, humans, Valar, and representatives from dozens of smaller civilizations. Every eye turned upward to the shining star. Cael'thera's glow, faint now, silver with golden streaks, pulsed as she addressed the assembly. Long ago, a human named Elias Ward gave his life so that no one species would dominate another. He showed us that courage and hope are stronger than fear. Today, we honor him not just as a hero, but as a symbol of what all civilizations can achieve when they choose light over darkness. Murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber. Children of both species watched with wonder. Teachers pointed to the star, whispering to students about the man who burned brighter than a sun. The humans, with their short lifespans, had long passed from the galaxy. But the story of Elias Ward, the man who refused to kneel, lived on. And his actions had shaped generations. The star itself seemed alive. Scientists discovered that the energy radiating from it was subtly intelligent. It responded to signals and even to emotion. Velar researchers hypothesized that Elias's final act had somehow fused his consciousness into the core of the Sun-Piercer explosion, that he became part of the star itself. Calthera, now ancient even by Velar standards, often walked among the observation decks alone, gazing at the star. She whispered to it, hoping the legend was true. "Elias, do you still burn?" Sometimes, when the light flared brighter than usual, she imagined she heard a soft, calm voice, when steady, warm, unyielding, but like the memory of a heartbeat, and she believed. The galaxy, united under the symbol of Ward's star, flourished. Human colonies and Velar systems merged in trade, culture, and knowledge. Humans had once been underestimated, fragile, emotional, unpredictable. Yet now their ideals of courage, sacrifice, and hope guided alliances across the stars. Velar technology, combined with human creativity and intuition, created incredible wonders. Starships that could travel through uncharted wormholes, cities floating in gas giants' atmospheres, medicine that healed in hours what once took decades, all because one human had dared to burn brighter than a weapon. Calthera's role in this transformation was immense. She had become a bridge, not a ruler, but a guide. She taught her people to value courage, to see strength in kindness, and to respect emotions as tools, not weaknesses. Young Velar cadets would sometimes ask her, "Why did you follow a human?" She would smile softly, her glow faint gold and silver. "Because he showed me what it means to be truly alive. He burned not for power, but for life, and that is the strongest fire of all." Meanwhile, the story of Elias Ward spread in countless forms. Holographic lessons in schools portrayed him as a teacher of courage. Plays on human colonies told of a soldier who risked everything for peace. Velar philosophers wrote treatises on his actions, describing the human flame as a principle to guide decision-making. Children grew up knowing that one life could light the galaxy, yet not all saw the light as Calthera did. Extremists still existed, those who believed that humans had gained too much influence. They whispered that the star was unnatural, dangerous, even blasphemous. One day, a young Velar scientist named Taranzel approached Calthera in private. His glow was faint, anxious. "Princess, we've detected unusual energy fluctuations around Ward's star. Some believe it could be destabilizing nearby systems." Calthera listened, calm despite her age. "Yes," she said softly. "It's true. That star is not just fire in the sky. It is a piece of him, Elias. And yes, it is powerful. But power without purpose is destruction. Power with courage is hope." Taranzel looked at her, eyes wide. "Do you trust it?" She smiled faintly, her silver gold glow pulsing steady. "I do. Because he trusted life more than fear, and I trust him." Time moved onward. Centuries later, a new generation of explorers prepared to leave the galaxy for uncharted regions. They built their ships in the shape of Elias Ward's star, a design symbolizing courage, hope, and the flame of humanity that had forever altered the universe. Calthera, now more legend than person, watched them leave. She felt the warmth of her old companion in the golden pulse inside her chest. Even in her advanced age, she knew that the galaxy would always carry his fire. And then, one quiet night, as she stood on the observation deck, something extraordinary happened. Ward's star flared brighter than ever, a pure, dazzling white that lit every colony, ship, and planet in the sector. Calthera felt the warmth fill her, almost like a hand on her shoulder. Then she heard it, not with her ears but in her heart, a voice, calm, strong, and warm. "Kyle, keep the light alive. Burn brighter than you think. Humanity is not just a species, it is a spark. And sparks can ignite galaxies. Her glow burst silver turning to gold. She smiled through her tears, knowing that Elias had never truly left her. He was there in every act of courage, every sacrifice, every hope renewed. The galaxy had been forever changed by a single human, and now, every being, alien or human, knew this truth. Humans may be fragile. Humans may be short-lived. But the human soul, when it blazes, can light the universe. The story of Elias Ward, the man who died so that peace could live, became immortal. Kael'thera lived long enough to see countless generations grow up under Ward's star. Valar and humans learned from each other, laughed together, and built civilizations that stretched farther than anyone had imagined. The galaxy remembered one lesson above all. It is not the strongest weapons that change the stars, but the courage, hope, and soul of those who refuse to let darkness win.